My name is Dr. Celeste Morgan. I'm 38 years old, and I'm a cardiothoracic surgeon. 3 days ago, I was lying in an ICU bed after a near-fatal car accident, unable to move or speak, when I heard my husband of 12 years whisper to another woman, "She won't survive the night." What he didn't know was that the communication system was still active. Every word was being recorded, every confession was being captured, and I heard everything. I'm going to tell you exactly how I used those recordings to destroy him, his mistress, and everyone who conspired to steal my life. But first, you need to understand something. When you're a surgeon, you learn to stay calm in crisis. You learn to make decisions when someone's life is on the line. You learn to cut away disease without hesitation. I spent 15 years cutting open human hearts to save lives. Never thought I'd have to use those same skills to cut a cancer out of my own life. But here we are. The accident happened on a Tuesday evening. I remember because Tuesdays are my late surgery days. I'd just finished a 7-hour cardiac bypass on a 62-year-old man. I was exhausted, running on 3 hours of sleep and cold coffee. I was driving home on the interstate when the semi-truck crossed into my lane. No warning, no time to react, just the screaming sound of metal tearing through metal, the violent impact, and then nothing. I woke up in the ICU. Or rather, I didn't wake up. Not really. I was conscious, but I couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't open my eyes. The doctors called it locked-in syndrome, a temporary condition caused by severe head trauma. My brain was awake and aware, but my body was completely paralyzed. I could hear everything, feel everything, but I couldn't communicate, couldn't tell anyone I was there, trapped inside my own body, screaming silently. The first voice I heard was my husband's, Marcus. We'd been married for 12 years, met in medical school. He was a pharmaceutical sales rep now, charming, successful, the kind of man who could sell ice to penguins. He'd supported my career, or so I thought. Attended hospital functions, smiled proudly when people called me Dr. Morgan, told everyone how lucky he was to be married to such an accomplished woman, yet. "Celeste, baby, can you hear me?" His voice sounded strained, worried. I felt his hand on mine, warm, familiar. I tried to squeeze back, tried to move my fingers. Nothing. My body was a prison. The doctors say you're stable, but the brain swelling is severe. They don't know if you'll wake up. They don't know if there'll be permanent damage. I heard him crying. At least it sounded like crying. Soft, shuddering sounds. I wanted to comfort him. Wanted to tell him I was here, I was fighting, I was going to survive this. But I was trapped. Voiceless, helpless. Before I continue, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I love hearing from you. And if this story resonates with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. The nurses came and went. I learned to track time by the shift changes, the beeping of monitors, the whoosh of the ventilator, the rustle of papers. I was aware of everything, cataloging every sound, every sensation, building a mental map of my surroundings because it was the only thing I could control. Marcus came every day. At first, he'd sit by my bed, hold my hand, talk to me about work, about the house, about our dog, Max, normal things, comforting things. But I noticed something. He never stayed long. 20 minutes, maybe 30. Then he'd leave, saying he had to check on things at home, handle my medical bills, deal with the insurance company. On the third day, a woman came to visit. I didn't recognize her voice at first. She spoke to the nurse outside my room, saying she was my colleague from the hospital. Dr. Sarah Chen from the cardiology department. But Sarah Chen's voice was higher, sharper. This woman's voice was smooth, cultured, dripping with false sympathy. "How is she?" the woman asked the nurse. "No change. The family's hoping for improvement, but with this level of trauma, it's difficult to predict outcomes." The woman entered my room. I heard the click of expensive heels on linoleum, felt someone standing close to my bed. Then she spoke again, and this time her voice was different. Cold. Calculating. "Oh, Celeste, look at you. All that brilliance, all that success, and now you're just a vegetable in a bed." My mind reeled. Who was this? Why was she talking to me like this? She continued, her voice dropping to a whisper. "You know, I always wondered what Marcus saw in you. You were so busy with your career, so obsessed with saving other people's lives, you never even noticed you were losing your own husband. He's been mine for 3 years, Celeste. 3 years. And now, finally, I get to have him completely. 3 years! The words hit me like a physical blow. 3 years of lies. 3 years of betrayal. While I was in the operating room saving lives, My husband was with another woman. She laughed softly. Don't worry, I'll take good care of him. And your money? God, you have no idea how much money you have. The life insurance alone is $2 million, plus your retirement accounts, your investment portfolio, the house. Marcus and I have been planning this for months. We were just waiting for the right time, and then you went and had that accident. Fate, I guess. I wanted to scream, wanted to grab her throat and demand answers, but I couldn't move, couldn't speak, could only lie there trapped while this woman gloated over my hospital bed. The lawyers say if you're declared brain dead, Marcus gets everything as your spouse, medical power of attorney, everything. He's already started talking to them about pulling the plug. Another few days, maybe a week, and you'll be gone, and I'll finally be Mrs. Marcus Morgan. She leaned closer. I could smell her perfume. Expensive. Cloying. Goodbye, Celeste. Thanks for everything. Her heels clicked away, the door closed, and I was alone with the knowledge that my husband and his mistress were planning to kill me. But what she didn't know, what neither of them knew, was that the room had a communication system. It's standard in ICU rooms, a way for patients to call for help if they're conscious but unable to use the call button. It's voice activated, always listening, always recording. Every word that woman said was captured. Every confession, every threat, every detail of their plan was documented. I couldn't speak, but I could listen, and I could remember. I was a surgeon. My mind was trained to focus, to process information, to plan complex procedures step by step. So that's what I did. I started planning. That night, Marcus came to visit. He sat by my bed, held my hand, and I heard something different in his voice. Something that hadn't been there before. Relief. He was relieved. The doctors say your brain activity is declining, he said softly. They think the damage is too severe. They're recommending we consider withdrawing life support. He paused. I felt him squeeze my hand. I'm so sorry, baby. I don't want to do this. But I can't watch you suffer. I can't keep you alive like this, trapped in your own body. It's not fair to you. Liar. He was a liar. He wanted me dead so he could collect my insurance money and run off with his mistress. But he was playing the grieving husband, preparing everyone for my death so it would look natural, inevitable, tragic. I'm going to talk to your parents tomorrow, he continued. I'll tell them what the doctors said. I think they'll understand. They love you too much to want you to live like this. My parents. God, my parents. They'd flown in from Florida the day after the accident. They'd been staying at our house, taking turns visiting me, praying for my recovery. They had no idea what Marcus was planning. No idea their son-in-law was a murderer. After Marcus left, I lay in the darkness, listening to the machines keeping me alive, and I made a decision. I wasn't going to die. I was going to survive this, and I was going to make Marcus and his mistress pay for every lie, every betrayal, every minute they'd spent plotting my death. The next day, I heard voices in the hallway. My father and Marcus talking in low, serious tones. The doctors want to do another brain scan, my father said. His voice was thick with grief. They say it'll help determine the extent of the damage. I understand, Marcus replied. I just want what's best for Celeste. If there's no hope, if she's suffering, I think we need to consider letting her go. She's my daughter, my father said, and I heard the break in his voice. I can't just give up on her. I know. But we have to be realistic. The longer she stays like this, the worse it gets. The brain damage becomes permanent. Even if she wakes up, she'll never be the same. She'll never be the Celeste we knew. Liar. Manipulator. He was preparing my father to agree to pull the plug, softening him up, making it seem like the merciful choice. But then something changed. The neurologist came to examine me, a woman named Dr. Patricia Hammond. I'd worked with her before, years ago, on a joint case involving a heart patient with neurological complications. She was brilliant, thorough, and she didn't miss details. She performed her examination, checking my reflexes, my pupil responses, my brain activity, and then she did something that saved my life. She leaned close to my ear and whispered, Celeste, if you can hear me, try to move your eyes. Just a tiny movement. Anything. I focused every ounce of will I had into my eyes. Move! Move! Please, God, move! And I felt it. A tiny flutter, the smallest twitch of my eyelid. There, Dr. Hammond said. Did you see that? Her left eyelid moved. That's not a random twitch. That's purposeful. Are you sure? Marcus's voice was sharp, alarmed. I'm sure. She's conscious. She's locked in, not brain dead. We need to run more tests, but I believe Dr. Morgan is aware of her surroundings. She just can't communicate yet." The room fell silent. I could feel Marcus's presence next to my bed, could almost hear his mind racing. If I was conscious, if I could hear, then I knew. I knew about his mistress. I knew about his plans. I knew everything. "That's wonderful news," my father said, his voice breaking with relief. "My daughter's still in there. She's fighting." "Yes," Dr. Hammond said. "And with proper rehabilitation, there's a chance she could recover significant function. The brain is remarkably resilient." Marcus left quickly after that. He made some excuse about having to handle business matters, but I knew the truth. He was panicking. His plan was falling apart. He needed to talk to his mistress, figure out what to do next. That night he came back late, very late, after visiting hours. I heard him enter my room, heard the door close, heard his footsteps approach my bed. And then I heard another voice, a woman's voice, the same voice from before, the mistress. "Are you sure it's safe to be here?" she whispered. "The nurses don't check this room much at night, and I told the night shift I wanted private time with my wife. They think I'm grieving. Marcus, this is a disaster. If she's conscious, if she heard me the other day..." "She couldn't have. You said yourself she's brain damaged." "But the neurologist said she's locked in. That means she can hear, she can understand. What if she heard everything I said?" "Then we need to move faster. I'll talk to the ethics board tomorrow. I'll push for them to rule that continued life support is futile. Her brain activity is inconsistent. The scans show significant damage. I can make a case that she's suffering." "What about her parents?" "They're devastated. Once I show them the medical evidence, once I explain that she'll never recover, they'll agree. They love her too much to keep her alive in this state." "And the insurance?" $2 million in life insurance, another $3 million in retirement accounts and investments. The house is worth $1.5 million, plus her medical practice partnership buyout. That's another $1 million. $7.5 million total. We split it and we're gone. New identities, new life, just like we planned. The woman moved closer to my bed. I could feel her presence, could sense her looking down at me. She's really trapped in there, isn't she? Aware of everything but unable to move, unable to speak. God, that must be torture. "Don't think about it," Marcus said. "In a few days, it'll all be over." "What about the recordings? The ICU communication system?" My heart, which had been racing, suddenly stopped. She knew. She knew about the recordings. "I already handled that," Marcus said. "I told the hospital administrator that the system was malfunctioning, causing feedback that was disturbing my wife's rest. They shut it down yesterday. All the recordings were erased. There's no evidence." No. The recordings were my only proof, the only evidence that they were planning to kill me, and they've destroyed it." "Good," the woman said. "Then we're safe. No one knows. No one suspects anything. We just need to wait a few more days. Let the ethics board make their ruling. Let the doctors declare her case hopeless. Then we withdraw life support and nature takes its course. And we're free. And we're free." They left together. I heard their footsteps fade down the hallway, heard the elevator ding, heard them disappear into the night, and I was alone again, trapped in my paralyzed body, with the knowledge that my husband was going to murder me and there was nothing I could do to stop him. But Marcus had made a mistake, a critical, fatal mistake. He'd assumed the communication system recordings were the only evidence. He'd assumed no one else was listening. He was wrong. Because earlier that day, when Dr. Hammond had discovered I was conscious, she'd done something. She'd quietly, discreetly, without telling anyone, installed a secondary recording device in my room. It was a small digital recorder, hidden inside a teddy bear one of the nurses had placed on my bedside table. Dr. Hammond had seen cases like this before, cases where family members or spouses tried to withdraw life support prematurely for financial gain. She'd learned to protect her patients. Every word Marcus and his mistress had said was recorded. Every detail of their plan, every confession, every threat, all of it was captured on that hidden device. And Dr. Hammond had it. The next morning, she came to examine me again. She performed her standard checks, but then she did something unusual. She leaned close to my ear and whispered, "Celeste, blink twice if you can understand me." I focused every ounce of will into my eyelids. "Blink, blink." "Good," she said softly. "I know what's happening. I know about your husband and the woman. I recorded everything last night. I'm going to help you. But you need to stay strong. You need to keep fighting. Can you do that?" Blink, blink. "The police are coming this afternoon. I've already contacted them. Your husband and his mistress will be arrested. But I need you to survive long enough to testify. I need you to recover. Can you promise me you'll fight? Blink, blink. Dr. Hammond squeezed my hand. I've got you, Dr. Morgan. You're not alone. By that afternoon, 2 detectives arrived at the hospital. Detective Sarah Reynolds and Detective Mike Chen. Dr. Hammond met them in the hallway outside my room and played them the recording. I couldn't see their faces, but I heard their reactions. Sharp intakes of breath, muttered curses, the rustle of notebooks as they took down every detail. This is conspiracy to commit murder, Detective Reynolds said. We need to arrest them immediately before they have a chance to go through with it. The husband is meeting with the hospital ethics board right now, Dr. Hammond said. He's trying to convince them to authorize withdrawal of life support. Where's the mistress? I don't know, but I have her voice on the recording. We can identify her. We'll need to analyze the audio, match it to a voice sample. Do you know who she is? Not yet, but Dr. Morgan might. If we can establish communication with her, she can tell us. They entered my room. I felt their presence, 2 strangers who suddenly represented my only hope for justice. Dr. Morgan, Detective Reynolds said, her voice gentle but authoritative. My name is Detective Sarah Reynolds. I'm with the Metro Police Department. We've heard the recording from last night. We know what your husband is planning. We're going to stop him. But we need your help. Can you blink once for yes, twice for no? I blinked once. Good. Do you know the identity of the woman who was in your room last night? I blinked once. Can you spell out her name using blinks, once for A, twice for B, and so on? It was painfully slow, but I did it. Letter by letter, blink by agonizing blink, I spelled out the name. Valerie. Then her last name, Blackwell. Valerie Blackwell, Detective Reynolds repeated. Do you know her? Is she someone from the hospital? I blinked once. Is she a colleague? I blinked once. A doctor? I blinked twice. No. A nurse? I blinked twice. No. A pharmaceutical rep? I blinked once. Yes. Detective Chen was typing on his phone. I'm pulling up pharmaceutical reps who work with this hospital. Let me see. Valerie Blackwell. Here she is. Works for MedCorp Pharmaceuticals. She's been calling on this hospital for the past 4 years. 4 years. Not 3 like she'd said. 4 years. She'd been sleeping with my husband even longer than I'd thought. We'll bring her in for questioning, Detective Reynolds said, along with your husband. But Dr. Morgan, we need you to understand something. Right now, we have the recording, but it's circumstantial. Defense attorneys will argue it's hearsay, that voices can be manipulated, that we can't prove it's really them speaking. What we need is for them to incriminate themselves while we're actively recording with proper legal authorization. Do you understand? I blinked once. We're going to set up a sting. We're going to let your husband proceed with his plan, but we'll have officers and recording equipment in place. When he and Ms. Blackwell come to your room tonight, we'll capture everything. Will you be okay with that? It means you'll have to listen to them discuss killing you one more time. I thought about it. Thought about lying here, helpless, while Marcus and Valerie stood over me and planned my murder. But I also thought about what would happen if they escaped justice, if they found some way to get away with it. I couldn't let that happen. I blinked once. Yes. If this story is making your blood boil like mine was, make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell so you don't miss what happens next. Trust me, the revenge gets so much better. Your support means everything to this channel. That evening, everything was set. The police had installed hidden cameras and microphones throughout my room. Detectives were stationed in the adjacent rooms and in the hallway. Dr. Hammond had made sure the nursing staff knew to stay away from my room between 10 p.m. and midnight, citing the need to give Marcus private time with his wife. At 10:30 p.m., I heard the door open. Marcus entered first, alone. He approached my bed, and I felt his hand on mine. For a moment, he just stood there in silence. Then he spoke. Celeste, I don't know if you can hear me. The doctors say you're locked in, that you're aware. God, I hope that's not true. I hope you're not in there, trapped, listening to this. He paused. I heard him take a shaky breath. I want you to know that I did love you. Once. When we first met, when we were young and stupid and thought we could conquer the world together. You were so brilliant, so driven. I was in awe of you. Another pause. But then you became obsessed. Your career was everything. You spent 80, 90 hours a week at the hospital. I'd go days without seeing you. When you were home, you were exhausted, distracted. It was like living with a ghost. I wanted to scream at him, wanted to tell him that I worked those hours to save lives, that my career was important, that he'd claimed to support me. but I couldn't. I could only listen. Valerie understood me. She listened. She made time for me. She made me feel like I mattered. And yeah, I know it's cliche, the husband having an affair with a pharmaceutical rep, but it happened, and I don't regret it. The door opened again. Valerie's voice filled the room. Is she asleep? Who knows? The doctors can't tell, but it doesn't matter. By this time tomorrow, it'll all be over. You talked to the ethics board? I did. They're ruling in my favor tomorrow morning. They're declaring that continued life support constitutes extraordinary measures with no reasonable hope of recovery. They're authorizing me to withdraw the ventilator. When? Tomorrow at noon. They'll have a whole team present, neurologist, the ethics board chair, a chaplain, very official, very compassionate. They'll remove the breathing tube and she'll die within minutes. Natural causes. No one will question it. And then? And then we wait the appropriate amount of time. 3 months, maybe 6. Long enough that it doesn't look suspicious. Then I'll collect the insurance money, liquidate the assets, and we'll leave. Just like we planned. Costa Rica, maybe, or Portugal. Somewhere with no extradition. Valerie laughed, a cold, brittle sound. I can't believe it's finally happening. 4 years, Marcus. 4 years I've been your secret, your backup plan, your mistress. You were never a backup plan. Wasn't I? You stayed with her, you slept in her bed, you played the devoted husband at hospital functions. Because I needed to, because she made all the money. Her salary as a surgeon dwarfed mine. I needed access to her accounts, her assets, and now I have it. Medical power of attorney gives me control of everything. What about her parents? They're destroyed. Her father is barely functional. Her mother just cries all day. They'll agree to the withdrawal. They think it's merciful. And her colleagues at the hospital? They're sad, but they understand. They know how severe her injuries are. They know she'd never want to live like this, trapped in her own body. They think I'm being brave, making the hard choice to let her go. Marcus moved closer to my bed. I felt his breath on my face as he leaned down. Goodbye, Celeste. I hope wherever you are, you can't hear this. I hope you're already gone, just a body on life support. Because if you are in there, if you are aware, this must be hell. And for that, I'm sorry. I never meant for you to suffer. He kissed my forehead. It was the gentlest gesture, and it made my skin crawl. Let's go, Valerie said. We shouldn't be here too long. Someone might notice. Right. Tomorrow at noon, then, the end of Dr. Celeste Morgan. They left. The door closed, and the room fell silent except for the beeping of my monitors and the whoosh of the ventilator keeping me alive. 10 seconds later, the door burst open. Detective Reynolds' voice filled the room. Marcus Morgan, Valerie Blackwell, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, and insurance fraud. You have the right to remain silent. I heard Marcus shouting, his voice high with panic. What the hell is this? This is a hospital room. You can't. We can, and we are. We have recordings of you planning to kill your wife. We have documentation of your conspiracy to defraud insurance companies. We have testimony from Dr. Patricia Hammond regarding your attempts to manipulate the ethics board. You're done. Valerie was screaming. This is a setup. You can't use those recordings. We didn't consent to being recorded. In a hospital ICU room with clear signage about surveillance systems. Yes, we can, and we did. Get them out of here. The sounds of struggle, of handcuffs clicking, of people being dragged from the room, and then finally silence. Dr. Hammond came to my bedside. I felt her take my hand. It's over, Celeste. They're going to prison. You're safe. I would have cried if I could, would have sobbed with relief, but all I could do was blink, once, twice, over and over. Thank you, thank you, thank you. My recovery was slow, agonizingly slow. The locked-in syndrome gradually began to lift. First, I regained movement in my fingers, then my hands, then my arms. Speech came back in fragments, single words at first, then short sentences. The physical therapy was brutal. Learning to walk again, to feed myself, to do all the basic things I'd taken for granted. But I was alive, and I was getting stronger every day. During those weeks of recovery, I learned the full extent of Marcus and Valerie's betrayal. Detectives Reynolds and Chen built an airtight case. They found evidence of the affair going back 4 years, not 3. They found emails between Marcus and Valerie discussing their plans, debating the best way to get rid of me. They found evidence that Marcus had been slowly draining my bank accounts, transferring money to offshore accounts in his name only. But the worst discovery came when they searched my house. In Marcus's home office, hidden in a locked file cabinet, they found a folder labeled contingency plans. Inside were detailed notes about the best ways to fake my death. Car accidents, home fires, accidental overdoses. He'd been researching this for months, maybe longer. The actual car accident that nearly killed me was genuine bad luck, a drunk driver in a semi-truck. But Marcus had been prepared to take full advantage of it. They also found that Valerie had a history. 2 previous relationships with married men. One of those men had died under suspicious circumstances. Carbon monoxide poisoning in his garage. The case had been ruled an accident, but now detectives were reopening it. Valerie Blackwell wasn't just a mistress. She might be a serial killer who targeted wealthy married men. My parents were devastated when they learned the truth. My father especially blamed himself. He said he should have seen the signs, should have questioned Marcus more aggressively. But I didn't blame him. Marcus was a skilled manipulator. He'd fooled everyone. My parents, my colleagues, our friends. He'd played the role of devoted husband perfectly while planning my murder behind the scenes. 3 months after the arrest, I was well enough to testify at the preliminary hearing. I walked into that courtroom on my own 2 feet, still shaky, still requiring a cane, but upright and alive. Marcus's face when he saw me was everything I'd hoped for. Pure shock, pure terror. He'd been so certain I would die, so certain his plan would work. I took the stand and I told the truth. All of it. The 4 years of neglect, the gaslighting, the financial manipulation, the moment I heard him whisper, "She won't survive the night," while I lay paralyzed in that hospital bed. The recording of him and Valerie plotting my death. The prosecutor played the audio for the court. Every word Marcus and Valerie had spoken in my ICU room caught on Dr. Hammond's hidden recorder. You could hear a pin drop in that courtroom. The jury members looked horrified. Some were crying. Marcus's defense attorney tried to argue that the recordings were obtained illegally, that they violated doctor-patient confidentiality, but the judge shut him down immediately. The recordings were made in a hospital ICU room with clearly posted notices about surveillance. And more importantly, Dr. Hammond had acted to protect her patient's life. Everything she did was legal and ethical. Valerie's attorney tried a different tactic. He argued that she never actually harmed me, that it was all just talk, that there was no concrete action taken. But the prosecutor demolished that argument by presenting evidence of Valerie's prior relationships, 2 dead men, 2 substantial insurance payouts, a pattern of behavior that made her intentions crystal clear. The trial lasted 3 weeks. I testified for 4 days, enduring brutal cross-examination from both defense attorneys. They tried to paint me as a workaholic who neglected her marriage, who drove her husband into another woman's arms. They tried to argue that Marcus's affair was my fault, that I'd been too focused on my career to notice my marriage falling apart. I didn't argue. I simply told the truth. Yes, I worked long hours. Yes, I was dedicated to my career. But that didn't give Marcus the right to steal from me, lie to me, or try to murder me. Nothing justified what he did. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they came back, they found both Marcus and Valerie guilty on all counts: conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, insurance fraud, financial exploitation. Marcus was sentenced to 25 years to life. Valerie got 30 years to life due to her prior history and the reopened investigation into her previous partner's death. Both would be eligible for parole in their 60s if they survived that long in prison. The judge also ordered full restitution. Every dollar Marcus had stolen from me, and it turned out to be more than I'd realized, nearly $800,000 over 4 years, had to be paid back. His entire estate, what little he had, was liquidated. His mother tried to argue that some of the money was hers, gifts she'd given Marcus, but the forensic accountants proved that wasn't true. Every cent had come from my accounts. I divorced Marcus while he was in prison awaiting sentencing. The divorce was the easiest legal proceeding of my life. Irreconcilable differences was a massive understatement. I got everything: the house, the cars, my retirement accounts, my medical practice partnership. Marcus got nothing except a prison cell and the knowledge that he'd destroyed his life for a woman who never really loved him. Because here's what came out during the trial. Valerie had other lovers besides Marcus, 3 of them in fact, married men, all wealthy, all potential marks. She'd been playing Marcus the entire time, just like she'd played her previous victims. She never intended to run away with him to Costa Rica. She was going to take the insurance money, disappear, and leave Marcus holding the bag. When Marcus found out, when he learned that Valerie had been using him, that her professions of love were all lies, he broke down in court, completely shattered, started sobbing, screaming that he'd destroyed his life for nothing. The judge had to clear the courtroom. I felt nothing watching him break. No satisfaction, no vindication. just a profound sadness that I'd wasted 12 years of my life on a man who saw me as nothing more than a bank account. 6 months after the trial, I returned to work. Part-time at first, just a few surgeries a week. My colleagues welcomed me back with open arms. They threw a party, filled my office with flowers, told me how much they'd missed me. Dr. Patricia Hammond became one of my closest friends. She saved my life, not just by keeping me alive medically, but by believing me, by recording the evidence, by refusing to let Marcus get away with murder. I owe her everything. My parents moved back to Florida, but they call every day. My mother still cries sometimes when we talk, overwhelmed with gratitude that I survived. My father checks in constantly, making sure I'm eating well, sleeping enough, taking care of myself. Their love has been the foundation of my recovery. I sold the house. Too many memories, too much pain. I bought a smaller place downtown, modern, bright, filled with light. No ghosts here, no echoes of Marcus's voice or Valerie's laughter. Just peace. I'm dating again. Slowly, carefully. A nice man I met through a hospital fundraiser. He's a civil engineer, stable, kind, not intimidated by my career. We're taking it day by day. I'm not ready for anything serious, and he understands that. Maybe someday, maybe never. Right now, I'm just focused on living, because that's what Marcus and Valerie tried to take from me, my life. Not just my physical life, but my career, my identity, my future. They wanted to reduce me to a corpse, a victim, a tragic story people would talk about in hushed tones. But I'm not a victim, I'm a survivor, and more than that, I'm victorious. Thank you for staying until the end. If this story gave you the justice you needed to see, check out the other videos on screen. They're just as satisfying. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? See you in the next story. Every time I perform surgery now, every time I hold someone's heart in my hands, I think about those days in the ICU, about being trapped, helpless, at the mercy of people who wanted me dead, about the thin line between life and death, between victim and victor. I think about Dr. Hammond's hidden recorder, that tiny device that captured the truth, about Detective Reynolds and Detective Chen, who believed me even when I couldn't speak, about my parents who never gave up hope, about everyone who fought for me when I couldn't fight for myself. But mostly, I think about the moment Marcus whispered, "She won't survive the night," while I lay there, locked in my own body. He was so certain, so confident that I would die, that he would win, that he would get away with everything. He was wrong. I survived. I thrived. And he's the one who lost everything. That's the message I want everyone watching this to understand. If you're in a situation where someone is trying to destroy you, trying to take everything from you, trying to silence you, don't give up. Fight. Use every resource you have. Use your mind, your strength, your will to survive. Document everything. Trust your instincts. Find allies. Build your case. And when the moment comes, when you have the evidence and the support and the opportunity, strike with everything you have. Because justice isn't always immediate. It isn't always obvious. Sometimes it requires patience, strategy, and the absolute refusal to let the people who hurt you win. I spent 3 weeks paralyzed in a hospital bed, unable to move or speak, listening to my husband plan my murder. 3 weeks of absolute hell. But I survived. And I used those 3 weeks to gather the evidence that would destroy him. Marcus thought my paralysis made me vulnerable. He thought it made me weak. He was catastrophically wrong. My paralysis gave me the gift of clarity. While I lay there unable to move, I heard everything. I learned everything, and I used that knowledge to dismantle his life piece by piece. Today, I'm back in the operating room. I'm saving lives. I'm mentoring young surgeons. I'm living the life Marcus tried to steal from me. And every day I wake up free, healthy, and surrounded by people who genuinely love me is another day of victory. Marcus Morgan is in a maximum security prison, sharing a cell with violent offenders. He'll be there for the next 25 years, minimum. Valerie Blackwell is in a women's prison 3 states away, also serving 30 years. They'll never see each other again. They'll never collect any insurance money. They'll never live the life they planned. And I'll never forget. I'll never forget that I am stronger than they ever imagined, that I survived what should have killed me, that I turned their perfect plan into their perfect destruction. To everyone watching who's ever felt powerless, who's ever been betrayed by someone they trusted, who's ever thought they couldn't fight back, you can. You're stronger than you know. You're more resilient than you imagine. And sometimes the very thing that seems like your greatest weakness becomes your greatest weapon. My paralysis saved my life. Because while Marcus and Valerie stood over my hospital bed and confessed everything, I was listening. I was remembering. I was planning. They thought I was helpless. They were wrong. And that made all the difference. 2 years have passed since that courtroom verdict. 2 years since I watched Marcus Morgan and Valerie Blackwell be led away in handcuffs to begin their decades-long prison sentences. 2 years since I reclaimed my life from the people who tried to steal it. And in those 2 years, I've learned something profound about revenge, justice, and what it really means to win. But first, let me tell you about the things that happened after the trial, the things that don't make it into the initial story, the aftermath that's just as important as the revenge itself. 3 weeks after Marcus and Valerie were sentenced, I received a letter. It came from the women's correctional facility where Valerie was being held. The envelope was plain, institutional, my name and address written in careful, controlled handwriting. I almost threw it away without opening it. Almost. But curiosity got the better of me. The letter was short, just 3 paragraphs. But those 3 paragraphs told me everything I needed to know about who Valerie Blackwell really was. Dr. Morgan, it began. Not Celeste, not Mrs. Morgan, just Dr. Morgan, formal and distant. I'm writing this because my attorney says it might help with my appeal if I show remorse. So here it is. I'm sorry. I'm sorry you got hurt. I'm sorry your marriage ended. I'm sorry for any pain I caused you. The second paragraph continued. But I need you to understand something. Marcus pursued me. He told me his marriage was dead, that you were cold and distant, that you cared more about your career than your husband. He made me believe I was saving him from a loveless life. I never meant to hurt anyone. I just fell in love with the wrong man. The final paragraph was the most revealing. I hope someday you can forgive me. I hope you can see that I was a victim too, in my own way. Marcus manipulated both of us. He's the real villain in this story. Please, if you have any compassion, write a letter to the parole board on my behalf. Tell them I deserve a second chance. I read the letter 3 times. Then I did something I hadn't done in months. I laughed. Really laughed. The kind of deep, genuine laughter that comes from witnessing something so absurd it transcends anger and becomes pure comedy. Valerie Blackwell, the woman who stood over my hospital bed and gloated about stealing my husband and my money, the woman who actively participated in planning my murder, the woman linked to at least 2 other suspicious deaths, wanted me to write her a parole letter. She wanted me to tell the authorities she deserved a second chance. I didn't respond. I threw the letter away and never thought about it again. Because here's what I learned. People like Valerie never accept responsibility. They never truly understand what they've done. They go through life playing the victim, convincing themselves that everything that happens to them is someone else's fault. But Marcus was different. Marcus, it turned out, understood exactly what he'd lost. 6 months after his sentencing, I received a message through his prison chaplain. Marcus wanted to speak with me. He wanted to apologize in person. He wanted closure. My therapist advised against it. You don't owe him anything, Dr. Sarah Kim told me during one of our weekly sessions. You've already won. You've already gotten your justice. Going to see him in prison won't give you anything you don't already have. She was right. But I went anyway, not for Marcus, for myself, because I needed to look him in the eye one more time and know, with absolute certainty, that I felt nothing for him. No love, no hate, no lingering connection, nothing. The visiting room at the correctional facility was exactly what you'd expect. Gray concrete walls, metal tables bolted to the floor, guards stationed at every exit. Marcus was brought in, wearing an orange jumpsuit, his hands cuffed in front of him. He'd lost weight. His hair had gone gray at the temples. He looked older, defeated, like someone had reached inside him and turned off a light. He sat down across from me. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. We just looked at each other, these 2 people who'd once promised to spend their lives together, now separated by a metal table and a decade of prison time. Thank you for coming, Marcus finally said. His voice was quiet, stripped of the charm and confidence I remembered. I wasn't sure you would. I almost didn't, I replied. My voice was calm, neutral. I'd practiced this conversation in my head dozens of times. I knew exactly what I wanted to say. I wanted to tell you I'm sorry, face to face, not through lawyers or letters or intermediaries. I wanted you to hear it from me directly. I waited. I didn't interrupt. I just let him talk. I was weak, he continued. I was jealous of your success, your brilliance, your career. Everyone at the hospital treated you like royalty, and I was just the pharmaceutical rep's husband. Just Dr. Morgan's spouse. I told myself it didn't bother me, but it did. It ate at me every single day. He looked down at his cuffed hands. Valerie made me feel important. She listened to me. She made me feel like I mattered. And somewhere along the way, I convinced myself that I deserved more than what I had. That I deserved your money, your success, everything you'd worked for. I told myself you wouldn't even miss it, that you were so focused on your career, you wouldn't notice. But you did notice, I said softly. In the ICU, you heard everything. Yes. Marcus met my eyes again. I replay that night over and over. I think about what would have happened if Dr. Hammond hadn't been recording, if the police hadn't caught us, if we'd succeeded in killing you. And it makes me sick. It makes me want to tear my own skin off. Good, I said simply. He flinched like I'd slapped him. You should feel sick, I continued. You should think about it every day for the rest of your life. Because while you're in here, replaying your mistakes, I'm out there living, operating, saving lives, building the career you tried to destroy. And every day I wake up free is a reminder that you failed. I know, Marcus whispered. I know I failed. I know I destroyed everything. My life, your trust, our marriage, all of it. For what? For money I never got? For a woman who was using me? For a fantasy that was never real? Yes, I said. For all of that. And you know what the worst part is, Marcus? None of it had to happen. If you'd just talked to me, if you told me you were feeling neglected or jealous or unimportant, we could have worked it out. We could have gone to therapy. We could have found a solution. But instead, you chose betrayal. You chose theft. You chose murder. I made the worst mistake of my life. No, I corrected him. You made 1,000 mistakes. Every single day for 4 years. Every time you slept with Valerie. Every time you drained my accounts. Every time you researched ways to kill me. Those weren't mistakes, Marcus. Those were choices. Deliberate, calculated choices. He was crying now. Not the manipulative crying I'd seen in court, but genuine, broken sobs. The kind of crying that comes from a man who finally understands the magnitude of what he's lost. I stood up. I didn't come here to forgive you. I came here to tell you that I've moved on, that you're nothing to me now except a cautionary tale, a reminder to never trust blindly, to never ignore red flags, to never let anyone make me feel like my career and my success are something to apologize for. I turned to leave, but Marcus called out, Celeste, wait, please, just tell me one thing. Did you ever really love me, or was I always just convenient, just the husband who supported your career? I looked back at him. I loved the man I thought you were, the man who said he was proud of me, the man who claimed to support my dreams. But that man never existed, did he? He was just a role you played while you planned my destruction. That's not true. I did love you, once, in the beginning. Maybe, I said. But love doesn't plan murder, Marcus. Love doesn't steal and lie and manipulate. Whatever you felt for me, it wasn't love. It was possession. And when I wouldn't be possessed, when I wouldn't shrink myself to make you feel bigger, you decided I should die. I walked out of that visiting room and never looked back. And as I drove away from the prison, I felt something shift inside me. A weight I hadn't even realized I was carrying suddenly lifted. Because I'd done what I needed to do. I'd looked my attempted murderer in the eye and told him the truth. And his tears, his remorse, his broken apologies, none of it mattered. None of it changed what he'd done. And none of it gave him power over me anymore. The other piece of closure came from an unexpected source. 6 months after my prison visit with Marcus, I received a phone call from Detective Reynolds. She asked if I could come to the police station. There was something I needed to see. When I arrived, she led me to a conference room where Detective Chen was waiting with a thick file folder. They both looked grim, and I felt my stomach tighten with apprehension. Dr. Morgan, Detective Reynolds began, we've been investigating Valerie Blackwell's history more thoroughly, following up on the suspicious death of her previous partner. And, I prompted. Detective Chen opened the folder. We found 2 other men who were involved with Valerie, both married, both wealthy, both dead under suspicious circumstances. One was ruled a suicide, jumped from a hotel balcony. The other was a hit and run that was never solved. I sat down heavily. She killed them? We believe so. We're working with prosecutors in multiple jurisdictions to build cases. With the evidence from your case, the patterns we've identified, witness statements from people who knew these men, we think we can prove she's a serial killer who specifically targeted wealthy married men. How many total? I asked. That we know of? 5. including you, except you survived. 5 men, 5 families destroyed, 5 women who'd lost their husbands to a predator who wore expensive perfume and carried pharmaceutical samples and knew exactly how to charm her way into their lives. One of the widows wants to meet you, Detective Reynolds said gently. Her name is Patricia Kerrigan. Her husband died 3 years ago. Carbon monoxide poisoning in his garage. She's believed it was suicide all this time, blamed herself for not seeing the signs. Now she knows it was murder. I met Patricia 2 weeks later at a quiet coffee shop downtown. She was in her early 50s, elegantly dressed, but I could see the weight of grief and guilt in her eyes. "Thank you for meeting me," she said as we sat down. "I know this is strange. I know we're connected by something horrible, but I needed to talk to someone who understands." "I understand," I said simply. "My husband Richard, he wasn't a bad man," Patricia continued. "He made mistakes. He had an affair with that woman, but he didn't deserve to die, and I didn't deserve to spend 3 years thinking he killed himself because he couldn't handle the guilt of cheating on me." "No," I agreed. "You didn't deserve that." When the detectives told me it was murder, that she'd killed him to collect on a life insurance policy he'd secretly taken out with her as the beneficiary, I felt so many things at once. Relief that it wasn't suicide. Rage that she'd taken him from me. Guilt that I didn't see what was happening. Patricia's hands were shaking. I reached across the table and took one of her hands in mine. "It's not your fault," I told her. "These people, they're skilled predators. They know how to hide, how to manipulate, how to make everything look normal until it's too late." "You survived," Patricia said, tears running down her face. "You were strong enough to fight back, to stop her. Richard couldn't do that, but you did. And because of you, she'll never hurt anyone else ever again." We talked for 2 hours. We shared our stories, our pain, our anger. And somewhere in that conversation, I realized something important. My survival, my victory, wasn't just about me. It was about every other woman Valerie would have targeted, every other husband she would have seduced and murdered, every other family she would have destroyed. By surviving, by fighting back, by gathering the evidence that put her away for 30 years, I'd saved lives. Maybe dozens of lives. And that realization transformed my understanding of what had happened to me. I wasn't just a victim who got revenge. I was a survivor who stopped a serial killer. Today, my life looks nothing like it did 3 years ago. I'm still a cardiothoracic surgeon, but I've cut back my hours. I work 50 hours a week now instead of 90. I take vacations. I have hobbies. I've rediscovered parts of myself that got lost during those years of obsessive career focus. I'm in a serious relationship now. His name is David, and he's a civil rights attorney. We met at a medical legal conference where I was speaking about patient advocacy, and he was presenting on healthcare discrimination. He's brilliant, kind, and completely secure in himself. He doesn't feel threatened by my success. He celebrates it. We've been dating for 18 months. We're talking about moving in together, maybe getting married eventually. But there's no rush, no pressure. We're building something real and solid, based on honesty and mutual respect. Everything my marriage to Marcus wasn't. David knows everything about what happened. I told him on our 3rd date because I refused to build a relationship on secrets or half-truths ever again. I told him about Marcus, about Valerie, about the ICU and the recordings and the trial. I expected him to run. Most people would. But David just listened. And when I finished, he said, "You're the strongest person I've ever met, and I'm honored that you trust me enough to share that with me." That's when I knew he was different. That's when I knew this relationship could actually work. My parents are doing well. They sold their house in Florida and moved closer to me. My mother wanted to be nearby, wanted to make sure I was really okay. She volunteers at the hospital now, working with patient families in the cardiac ward. She says it helps her process what happened, knowing she's supporting other families going through medical crises. My father has become my biggest advocate. He speaks at conferences about recognizing the signs of domestic abuse and financial exploitation. He tells our story, with my permission, to help other families understand that abuse doesn't always look like what you think it looks like. Sometimes it's subtle. Sometimes it's hidden behind charm and success and the facade of a perfect marriage. Dr. Patricia Hammond is still my closest friend. We have dinner together every Thursday night. She's getting married next month to another doctor at the hospital, and I'm her maid of honor. She saved my life in every way that matters. And I'll never stop being grateful for her instinct to protect me, to record what was happening, to believe that I was worth fighting for. I've also started doing advocacy work. I speak at medical conferences about patient safety and the importance of believing patients who can't advocate for themselves. I've worked with hospital administrators to improve ICU communication systems and protocols for patients with locked-in syndrome. I've lobbied for stronger laws against medical power of attorney abuse, because what happened to me should never happen to anyone else. The system that nearly allowed Marcus to kill me legally, with a doctor's authorization and an ethics board's approval, needs to change. And I'm using my voice, my platform, my story, to make that change happen. Last month, I received an email from a woman in Oregon. Her sister had been in a car accident and was in a coma. The sister's husband was pushing to withdraw life support after only 2 weeks, claiming the doctor said there was no hope. But something felt wrong to this woman. Something about the husband's behavior seemed off. She'd seen a video of me speaking at a conference. She'd heard my story, and it made her suspicious enough to hire a private investigator. The investigator discovered that the husband had recently taken out a large life insurance policy on his wife. He'd been having an affair. He'd been researching irreversible coma and brain death criteria on his computer. Because of my story, this woman knew what to look for. She contacted the police. She requested additional medical opinions. She fought to keep her sister alive long enough for the truth to come out. Her sister woke up 3 weeks later, fully conscious, able to communicate, able to testify that she'd overheard her husband talking about pulling the plug. The husband was arrested. The sister survived. And none of that would have happened if I hadn't shared my story. If I hadn't been willing to speak publicly about the worst thing that ever happened to me. That's the real victory. Not Marcus rotting in prison, though that's satisfying in its own way. Not the $800,000 in restitution I received, though I donated all of it to domestic violence organizations and patient advocacy groups. The real victory is knowing that my survival meant something, that my story saved someone else's life. I think about those days in the ICU sometimes, about being trapped in my paralyzed body, aware but unable to move, listening to Marcus plan my death. About the terror, the helplessness, the absolute certainty that I was going to die and there was nothing I could do to stop it. But I also think about the moment I blinked. That tiny, almost imperceptible movement of my eyelid that told Dr. Hammond I was conscious, that told her I was still fighting, that started the chain of events that saved my life and destroyed my would-be murderers. One blink. That's all it took to change everything. People ask me if I'm angry, if I'm bitter, if I'm traumatized by what happened. The answer is complicated. Am I angry? Sometimes. When I think about the 4 years Marcus spent draining my accounts while pretending to love me. When I think about Valerie standing over my hospital bed, gloating about stealing my life. When I think about how close they came to succeeding. Yes, I feel rage. Cold, controlled rage. Am I bitter? No. Bitterness requires dwelling in the past, letting what happened poison your present and future. I refuse to give Marcus and Valerie that power over me. They took enough. They don't get to take my joy, my peace, my ability to trust and love again. Am I traumatized? Yes, I have nightmares sometimes. I wake up gasping, feeling paralyzed, hearing Marcus's voice whisper, "She won't survive the night." I have moments of panic in medical settings, flashbacks to the ICU. I'm in therapy. I'm working through it. But the trauma is real, and I don't pretend otherwise. But here's what I want everyone to understand. You can be traumatized and still be victorious. You can carry scars and still be whole. You can have nightmares and still live a beautiful life. Survival isn't about erasing what happened. It's about refusing to let what happened erase you. Marcus thought my paralysis made me weak. He thought my silence meant I was helpless. He was catastrophically wrong. My paralysis gave me information. My silence gave me strategy. And my survival gave me the power to destroy him completely. 3 years ago, I was lying in an ICU bed, unable to move or speak, listening to my husband plan my murder. Today, I'm standing in an operating room, holding a human heart in my hands, saving a life that Marcus tried to end. That's the message I want to leave you with. If you're in a situation where someone is trying to destroy you, trying to silence you, trying to take everything from you, don't give up. Even when you feel paralyzed, even when you feel powerless, even when it seems impossible, fight. Document everything. Trust your instincts. Find allies. Build your evidence. And when the moment comes, strike with everything you have. Because justice is possible. Victory is possible. And sometimes, the thing that nearly kills you becomes the thing that saves you. I survived what should have killed me. I turned my near-death experience into evidence that put 2 criminals away for decades. I transformed my trauma into advocacy that's saving other lives. And if I can do that, if I can come back from being paralyzed and helpless and listening to my own husband plan my murder, then you can survive whatever you're facing too. You're stronger than you know. You're more resilient than you imagine. And sometimes when you're at your absolute lowest, when everything seems darkest, that's when you discover what you're truly capable of. I discovered I was capable of everything: survival, strategy, victory, and transformation. Marcus Morgan thought he was murdering a helpless woman. Instead, he created an enemy he couldn't defeat. He awakened something in me I didn't know existed: a cold, calculated determination to win at all costs. And I did win. Completely. Absolutely. Finally. I'm Dr. Celeste Morgan. I'm 40 years old. I'm a cardiothoracic surgeon, a domestic violence advocate, a survivor, and living proof that the people who try to destroy you don't get to write your ending. You write your own ending, and mine is beautiful. This is my final message, my complete story, the beginning, the middle, and the end. I hope it helps someone out there who needs it. I hope it gives you courage. I hope it reminds you that you're not alone, that justice is possible, that victory is within your reach if you're willing to fight for it. Thank you for listening. Thank you for caring. Thank you for being part of this journey with me. Stay strong, stay vigilant, and never ever let anyone convince you that you deserve less than everything. You deserve love. You deserve respect. You deserve safety. You deserve justice. And if someone tries to take those things from you, you have every right to fight back with everything you have. I did, and I won. You can too. This is Dr. Celeste Morgan, signing off. Peace.